is a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Fox. We are Florida.
Last night, under mysterious skies, the difference between a win and a loss was razor thin. A drop pop-up, a missed liner. That sealed Miami's fates. Tonight in Atlanta, a chance at redemption. Marlins and Braves, Game 2. On this gorgeous Memorial afternoon weekend, it's a big time to be in the South. In Atlanta, that's where the Marlins are. Great tailgating going on. Turner Field is jumping. The Memorial Day weekend is rolling. So come on inside, Turner Field. We've got game. Oh, yeah. It's Chipper Rescues Freddy Bobblehead Day. I know it's a convoluted title, but there's a story there, and we'll explain later. Hi, everybody. Rich Waltz, along with Eduardo Perez. The moral of the story for the eighth inning and the Marlins last night, it doesn't matter if the team's in first place or in last place. If you give your opponent an out or two late in a tight game, you're not going to win.
Rich, this is still Major League Baseball, and those are Major League Baseball players that are playing against the Marlins. And the Marlins have to realize that no matter how good or how bad those teams are that they're playing against, they better play to the level that they play the game, not to the level of their opponents.
Explain this to me. Now, the Marlins are above 500. They're in the race in the East in the wild card, but they can't beat the Braves, who have won only 3 games at home all year. Why?
Well, the Atlanta Braves are a team that have struggled with runners in scoring position all season long, but against the Marlins, they're doing pretty good. You see the numbers there, 243 for the Marlins, 353 for the Braves, but the most interesting part is their bullpen, that is the Braves bullpen, has been able to neutralize the Marlins offense. And if the starting pitching can go 5 or 6 innings, there's a lot of confidence going on in the Braves side.
Well, that's the title of Wei-Yin Chen, starting pitcher. And for Chen, over his last few starts, seems to be a little more aggressive, and a few more strikeouts are coming his way.
They are, and one thing I would love to see again from Chen is start off early, start off often throwing inside, establish that part, and let the rest of his ability and that fastball and the breaking pitch work for him.
Now, one of the young arms that the Braves are hoping develops, he came over in a trade in the offseason. Their right-hander, Aaron Blair, that was the Diamondbacks trade that also brought a few other nice pieces for the Braves.
For the Braves minor league system, and now they're starting to come out pretty quick to the big leagues. And this is one of the big pieces from Arizona. He's a nice thrower. We'll see what he has with that changeup and curveball that he possesses. He has to be able to locate against this Marlins team.
All right, the Marlins did well against the Rays without Giancarlo, without Christian Yelich. Last night, the Fish saw Christian Yelich come back for a pinch hitting spot. What's the update with Yelich and with Stanton? Jessica Blaylock has it when we get back. presenting sponsor of Miami Marlins baseball. Turner Field, Fish and Braves, and Jessica Blaylock. Jess?
Hey, Rich, once again, no Christian Yelich and no Giancarlo Stanton in the lineup for the Marlins. This is the 8th straight game that Yelich has been out of the lineup, the 4th straight for Stanton. Luckily, Yelich has been able to make a couple of pinch hit appearances this week, which is one reason Don Mattingly is encouraged with where he's at.
Well, got him in the game, but he also took full BP yesterday, and he swung the bat really well in BP, you know, and wasn't guiding it or babying it. So I think that gave him the confidence that he's okay. He was able to get in the game. Then I think wake up today after all of that and feel good. Jeez is going to up the kind of the, I don't know about the tempo, not tempo, that's not the right word, just harder. More, you know, just more force, and see where we go with that and make that decision.
As far as today, Christian Yelich should be available to pinch hit. Giancarlo Stanton, however, most likely unavailable. When we return, it's the Braves and the Marlins in Game 2 of this 3-game series. Wei Chin on the mound. He faced Atlanta back in April, only allowed 2 runs and 6+ innings of work.
Miami Marlins baseball on Fox Sports Florida is brought to you by the all-new 2017 Chrysler Pacifica by the Florida Department of Transportation, reminding you to drive sober or get pulled over by your local Toyota dealers. Let's go places. And by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. Ichiro in the box. First pitch of the day is a fastball from Aaron Blair, and it misses low and inside. 24-year-old out of Las Vegas, just turned 24 2 days ago, and just up from AAA after making 5 starts earlier in the year for the Braves. Ichiro, Martin Prado, Marcell Ozuna scheduled in the first. Braves winners last night by a score of 4-2. This game 2 of a 3-game weekend set. Ichiro pulls a ground ball. Freeman way off the bag, and a high toss. Blair safe at first. Alfonso Marquez, the first base umpire, said Blair missed the bag. He was right there to make the call. Freeman and Blair discuss, and here's our first look at it. Well, from that angle, you're not sure. You need a angle up or down one of the lines to see if there's any space between that foot of Blair and the bag.
And because he had to rush with Ichiro getting down the line in a hurry, Blair gets there from this angle. Very hard to tell if he does touch the bag or not.
And this for the Braves, this is a real tricky one. If you challenge and lose this early in the game, you lose your challenge. The Braves are going to challenge, and we'll see if there's another replay that has a clearer look. I don't know from those first two if there is complete confidence that you can overturn it. You got to be 100% to overturn the call, which was safe.
Clear and concise as it's called. Very risky move right now by the Braves, but the way they feel, that's Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves, is they just showed a different angle on the scoreboard, and you hear the fans. He's also looking at it, but very difficult from the angle that we've seen to overturn it. If this is not overturned, puts the Braves in a big-time disadvantage.
They would lose their challenge. Umpires can initiate a challenge from the 7th inning on. You see Don Mattingly looking at the scoreboard at a variety of replays. We've seen a couple of views, and we're efforting to get you a couple more. Of course, in New York, they have the ability to take the Braves, the Marlins, and other cameras in the ballpark. Safe. You know, you get a sense that this is going to be a call stance.
You have that sense. It's very difficult from this angle to tell if he did touch or not. If this would have been called out by Alfonso Marquez and Don Mattingly and the Marlins decide to challenge, most likely it wouldn't have been overturned. Hard to tell from any angle that we saw.
Minute and a half for the review. Call stands as the announcement here in the press box. So Ichiro's aboard. It's ruled an E1. Martin Prado with Marcell Ozuna behind against Aaron Blair. Ball gets by Tyler Flowers in a messy start for the Braves. An error on a play at first and a passed ball by their catcher.
That's a problem that the Braves have had this season between Flowers and A.J. Pierzynski behind the plate. Flowers has been very consistent, not allowing pass balls, but A.J. Pierzynski blocking baseballs and stuff that the Braves want to see more Flowers behind the plate.
Prado takes a breaking ball outside. The aftermath of last night's 8th inning, Martin Prado, as you would expect, just very, very hard on himself. Said he should have had that line drive. The official scoring was changed to a hit. Prado said last night that he would lobby today to change it back to an error. That fastball misses in. That's how strongly he felt he should have had the ball. He did say that the ball wasn't hit as hard as he thought it was. And so his reaction time was sped up. Ball glanced off of his glove, ended up in left field. Markakis was given a 2-run single after that scoring change. 3-0 pitch. Prado takes a strike.
So much to be said about accountability. Martin Prado, being the leader in that clubhouse and on the field, has been so consistent, not only as a player, but as a person, and seeing guys how they gravitate towards him. That's one of the biggest reasons, accountability itself.
Taking a shot at that right side. Prado fouls it off. So you've seen Ichiro. You've seen Martin Prado. UHealth Sports Medicine brings you the lineup.
You see Marcell Ozuna in the 3 spot, Justin Bour behind him in the 4th spot, JT Realmuto catching, hitting 5th with Derek Dietrich, the left-handed hitter playing 2nd base. Cole Gillespie getting another start in left field, doing a wonderful job out there with Danny Echeverria at shortstop, and Wei Jin Chin pitching, hitting 9th.
Prado busted his bat. He's got a new one. With the count full now. Ichiro's out at 2nd, just underway. Memorial Day weekend underway in the South here in Atlanta. 3-2 fouled at the plate. Afternoon start here. Tomorrow night series concludes with a 5 o'clock start.
And you see right here the defense for the Braves. Shortstop will be holding Ichiro on. They know Martin Prado hits the ball well the other way with a runner at 2nd base. He's willing to give himself up to move the runner to 3rd.
3-2. Foul tip. Flowers held it. And Prado goes down on strikes. So the Braves have an out before Ozuna stands in. Southwest Airlines brings you Atlanta's defense. Adonis Garcia and Freddie Freeman on the corners. Daniel Castro, Gordon Beckham up the middle. Tyler Flowers, the catcher, and outfield of Frank Coeur. Malik Smith in center. Nick Markakis in right. So now Ozuna, Miami's hottest hitter. And the guy that is having an incredible month of May, and certainly should be in the discussion and the running for National League Player of the Month. When you're hitting .462 and slugging .745 for the month, you've got to be in that discussion. He leads the majors in hits this month with 43, and he had 3 more last night. Daniel Descalso, Jeff Francoeur will top that list.
Well, those first 2 pitches indicate that this is the guy the Braves do not want to let beat them. With no Christian Yelich in the lineup, with no Giancarlo Stanton in the lineup, all the focus goes on Marcell Ozuna.
Justin Bour behind Ozuna. Fastball in, and the test for Ozuna, and so far, Eduardo, he's passed that. Without Stanton, without Yelich, Ozuna has not tried to do too much, even though he's been moved into the cleanup spot. And for young hitters, sometimes psychologically, that can mess with your mind and your swing.
It could, but to me, the advantage that the Marlins do have is that they have a lot of experience on that bench, a lot of veteran, ex-veteran players that are now coaches that have been through this and understand, and they keep him level.
Ichiro, the runner at 2nd, 1 out. Breaking ball, chopped to short. Ichiro going to 3rd, and he will be out. Daniel Castro, an easy throw. Adonis Garcia with the tag.
Well, that was a layup right there that Ichiro gave Castro. Ball's in front of you. If you can't beat the ball out of the gate, that's where you have to be able to stay at 2nd base. You ask Ichiro, he'll tell you the same thing. Mental error on his part. Going to 3rd base. Now you have a runner at 1st with 2 outs.
Justin Bour, who was 1 for 4 last night, and drove in a run with a ground ball out. And Blair misses with a fastball. Bour sitting on 9 home runs and 6 doubles. Infield shifted around. 3 on the first base side of 2nd. Bour sends it to center field. Smith is there, and he reaches up and makes a catch. Aaron Blair in a scoreless game. The first scoreless, Wei Chen going after the Atlanta Braves, trying to get the Marlins back on the winning side of things this afternoon. Their lineup brought to you by UHealth Sports Medicine.
At the top of the lineup, center fielder Malik Smith with a lot of speed. Gordon Beckham in the 2 spot playing second base. Freddie Freeman in the 3 spot. Tyler Flowers, the catcher, hitting cleanup with Nick Markakis, the veteran, playing right field. Jeff Francoeur had 4 hits yesterday. His average is .284 playing left field. Adonis Garcia, El Cubano, playing third base with Daniel Castro at shortstop and Aaron Blair on the mound, hitting 9th.
Wei Chen making start number 10. The ERA just above a mid-4 number. You see the career against the Braves. He started and won a game here. That was his very first year in the major leagues, 2012, with the Orioles. Smith has great speed. Chen misses with a fastball down low. Gordon Beckham, Freddie Freeman scheduled for the Braves, who have had a miserable year so far, but have Miami's number, to the tune of winning all 4 matchups, 3 in Miami in the game last night. And yet the Braves are 13-34 overall. The Fish sit 2 over, 25-23, 3.5 back of the Mets and the Nationals. Dietrich in time to get the speedy Smith. And so an out Miami's defense tonight, brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Gillespie, Ozuna, Ichiro in the outfield. Prado and Bohr in the corners. Dietrich Echeverria up the middle. And JT Realmuto behind the plate. The aftermath of that 8th inning, we told you about Prado's perspective. Routine saying he should have had that ball and it should have been an error. In discussing the pop-up that dropped between Adeiny Echeverria and Cole Gillespie, Don Mattingly felt both players had an opportunity to catch that ball, and felt that Echeverria, especially after he went after that ball, had he taken control, may have had an easier play than Gillespie. But both guys admitted they should have been a little more aggressive going after it. 2-0 pitch. On the ground, Echeverria in time to get back.
On this play, watch how far Cole Gillespie is in left field, and he has to come a long way to catch this baseball. And Echeverria, as soon as he veers to his right, our left, the ball continues to transition towards his left. He was thinking with his internal clock, as he told me, thought that Cole Gillespie was going to be under it. The only part that he was wrong was he did not know how far Gillespie was, playing no doubles in the 8th inning. And speaking with him earlier, he told me, he said, that one's on me, not on Gillespie.
Freddie Freeman fouls it back. And Don Mattingly also said that, as you pointed out, internal clocks and instincts are one thing, but there was no old-fashioned communication.
No. None. And it happens actually before that play. One, he has to know where the outfielders are before the pitch is thrown. That batter comes in, that's a must. And the good thing about it is, one, he'll learn from it. Obviously, badly is that the Marlins paid dearly for it, but taking again accountability, just like Martin Prado did with the play after.
Freddie Freeman fouls one back. Freeman was 2 for 4 last night, scored a couple of runs. It's funny, Perry Hill and Echeverria were working on that very play last night before the game. During batting practice, Echeverria was taking pop-ups in shallow left field. So Marlins hope they've corrected that. A tough lesson to learn. And you move on to game 2. The 1-2. Breaking ball fouled off the screen. Freddie Freeman, a roller coaster of a year. Really slow start, then a hot spell. Last night kind of snapping out of a cold run after that. Swing and a miss. Elevated fastball. Freeman goes down. 1-2-3 for Wei Chen. Scoreless after 1. Full story later on Action 5 News. All right, all-you-can-eat seats Monday. Now remember, Monday and Tuesdays Pirates-Marlins games are in Miami. And at Marlins Park, you get the all-you-can-eat seats for just $25. Military personnel and veterans, first responders all get in free with a valid ID. Marlins.com for tickets. Pirates, a fun team to watch. And a team right now that's been playing better of late. They've won 8 of their last 10, 28-19. Real Muto pops the first pitch he sees up between home and first. Freeman in fair territory makes a catch. One pitch, one out for Aaron Blair. Here's Derek Dietrich. Cole Gillespie also coming up here in the seconds. Nation brings you the scouting report for Aaron Blair.
Well, the young man just turned 24 on Thursday. You see that thundering herd. Attended Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia. And he was part of the big trade that brought Dansby Swanson, Ender Inciarte, and Shelby Miller was traded to Arizona for those 3. A lot of people never spoke much about Blair. It was more about Swanson, more about the defense of Inciarte. But so far, this young man with his stature has done a nice job moving and locating that fastball.
Of course, John Hart continuing the makeover of the Braves. Shelby Miller had a really nice year last year. Arizona wanted to supplement the Greinke signing. Ender Inciarte can really play. Swanson, many feel, will be a star at shortstop. And Aaron Blair is a first-round pick with really good minor league numbers coming in. And Dietrich crosses up a shift and shoots it through that wide hole between Garcia and the third base line for a one-out single. Second into the series for Dietrich.
Watch where the shift is. Look where the third baseman is playing, almost at shortstop depth. All of a sudden, you have so much room, a lot of room for error to just drive it on the ground that way, and that's exactly what he did.
Now Gillespie, who was 1 for 4 last night. Played a key role in both wins in St. Pete against the Rays. 5 hits in his last 3 games. Craig Davis in the Sun Sentinel had a nice little piece on Gillespie. Great spring, but no place for him. Took the assignment to AAA, liked the fact that the Marlins gave him a chance last year to play as much as they did. And is rewarded for it by the call-up. Needed here in the absence of Stanton and Yelich.
Well, the time for the plate on Blair is like 146 to 148 to the plate. Such a big man does help his catcher try to get the ball in a hurry. It's a good time if you can get a good jump. You're Dietrich.
Tyler Flowers taking a peek into the Braves dugout to see if they want to throw over to first.
Derek has a bigger lead right now than he did before.
Count 2-2. In the absence of D. Gordon, the Marlins really haven't had a base stealing threat and really haven't attempted many stolen bases at all. Fouled at the plate. The Marlins are 13 for 22 in stolen bases. And they sit down with St. Louis and a couple other teams, the fewest in the National League. You subtract Gordon's 6 stolen bases and his 8 attempts, and the numbers are even smaller. And Gillespie fouls it into the seats. Center field. Malik Smith at the track, reaches and can't get it. Slams against the wall. Ball bounces away. Here comes Dietrich. Gillespie right behind him. Dietrich will score. Gillespie's got a triple, and Miami is on the board. Smith, the ball, and the wall all converged on the exact same spot at the same time.
What a great at-bat by Cole Gillespie. Missing location was Blair on the inner half. Gillespie not trying to pull the baseball. Ball kept carrying during the day. You ask Malik Smith, he'll tell you he should have caught that baseball. Fortunately for Cole, ball kept carrying. See Derek right there holding on before the bag. Lenny Harris sending Derek Dietrich all the way in, and Cole Gillespie ends up at third base. Infield will be in with 1 out.
Big at bat for Echeverria now. He fouls the first pitch back. How about Gillespie with 6 hits going back to that Wednesday night game in St. Pete. His first triple of the season. Blair is 0-1 on Echeverria. Infield in. Pulls it foul. And with Dwayne Chen on deck, and of course Chen still looking for his first major league hit. This is an enormous at bat early in this ballgame.
It is, and this is where Blair will try to make Hetchie's chase. And as a runner at third base, you have to be aware of the wild pitch.
Up the middle into center field, a base hit. Echeverria drives home Gillespie, and Miami has a 2-0 lead.
Well, you have a chip on your shoulder from last night. Both Cole Gillespie and Adeiny Echeverria have been the catalyst in this inning, a big part of trying to get some runs on the board. One with a triple, and this slider just had too much of the plate. As you see where Tyler Flowers wanted it, and the young pitcher on the mound, Aaron Blair, could not execute the pitch.
Echeverria, who had that nice series down in St. Pete, including a 2-run homer and 3 hits. Chen trying to bunt, does. Garcia on to first in time to get the out. So that sets up an Ichiro at bat with 2 outs. And Echeverria in scoring position. Ichiro had that odd play in the first in which his roller pulled Freddie Freeman off the bag, and he flipped it to Aaron Blair. Blair missed the bag. At least that's what the first base umpire Alfonso Marquez said. But the Braves challenged, and every video look that we had, there was really no clear evidence to overturn. First hitter of the game, and the Braves lost their challenge for the rest of the day. Striking, it's 0-1. and a strike. Jessica Blaylock updated Christian Yelich and Giancarlo Stanton's status. Yelich did pinch hit last night. He walked on 4 pitches. Count 2-1. Giancarlo Stanton upped his intensity, in the words of Don Mattingly. So Yelich is still closer to returning to an everyday role than Stanton. Pitch is way out. As we travel around baseball, Eduardo Perez, I have determined, is a peculiar guy and packs a variety of things. Thus, the Ichiro hit counter, every time Ichiro comes to the plate, Eduardo pulls it out of his bag, takes it out of the wrapping, and sets it up.
This time on top of the power strip. Try to add a little bit more power, a little juice to the...
Now, you know I mean, those things are already selling on eBay, I'm told, for upwards of $75, $80.
Well, this one's about to go way up. This one gets action on TV. Right, big guy? Yeah. Right here. There he is, staring at me. He travels everywhere.
In a hermetically sealed case, just like Ichiro's bats.
Right here.
Same treatment for Ichiro's hit counter bobblehead. Now next Saturday, Mike Lowe bobblehead. Now I want to see you travel with the Mike Lowe bobblehead as well. I mean, look at him. That's in honor of the Gold Glove, it looks like.
That's a bigger head though on the bobblehead.
First 10,000 fans get a Mike Lowe bobblehead, all-you-can-eat seats on an All-Star Saturday. Next Saturday, Marlins and Mets. Weekend series against the Mets after the 4-gamer against the Pirates. And the Marlins hit the road going to Minnesota, Arizona, and San Diego. Prado takes a breaking ball. The crack staff in the truck just informed us, Eduardo,
right,
that the Ichiro hit counter is up to $150 on eBay.
Yeah, well, this one's still in mint condition. I still carry all the box. I carry the foam.
Do you carry the little special wrap where the bat detaches?
I do. It's right here. I have everything here. Look, got the box. I have where it goes.
See, some guys,
I take care of them.
Some broadcasters travel with media guides.
I have the whole thing. And just in case,
baseball literature,
little sweat, I have them marking.
And you're carrying toys around the National and American League.
Rich, if it works, it works.
Breaking ball misses outside. The Marlins are really making Aaron Blair work. 2 runs across, a Gillespie RBI triple. That followed Dietrich's hit, and then Echeverria chased home Gillespie.
Would it cost more if I get Ichiro to sign it? Or would it lose its mint condition?
I would think the value would go much higher. Or I could sign it as Ichiro. I'd like, you know.
Oh, there it goes. It goes way down.
Yeah.
That screams bad.
Yeah, it would be like $5 at that point. And you would have to pay the shipping.
As true Japanese would say, dame desu.
1-2. Oh! See, now you're getting just like Prado when the ball comes near, you're yelping like he usually does. Let's listen.
See? The more we see of Martin, the more we just become Martin. Good time for a slider, though.
He struck him out in the first. And he got him again. So Prado strikes out. The Marlins have to settle for 2. They leave 2. We're into the bottom of the second.
It's 2-0 in the second inning. Hey, we're talking about bobbleheads. How about this Freddie Freeman one that's been given away today at the game? This one's got a very cool story behind it. Back in January of 2014, there was a massive snowstorm in Atlanta. It stranded thousands of drivers on the highway, including Freddie Freeman. After sitting in traffic for 5 hours, Freeman took to Twitter to let everyone know that he was stuck. Who saw it? Chipper Jones, and came to the rescue. He was able to find Freddie Freeman and get him back safely to his house after 11 total hours. So the theme of today's bobblehead giveaway, Chipper rescues Freddie. Take a look at that.
Very nice. Good likeness, too. Tyler Flowers fouls it off. Well, it's good to see Chipper Jones here. Dan Uggla was here yesterday. As the Braves are trying to transition from the Chipper Jones era to a new era when they move into their new ballpark next year. They've turned over the roster, except for Freeman. He remains.
There is a ATV out in the parking lot. I don't know what they have planned, but there is one out there.
So you're saying mid-ceremony, maybe fill the bucket riding on the back?
You never know. Chipper is in the house.
Flowers, Markakis, and Jeff Francoeur in the second against Wei-Yin Chen. 1-2-3 first with a strikeout of Freeman to end it. And that one bounces in the dirt. Chen had that massive strikeout game 3 starts ago after a pep talk from Juan Nieves asking for a little more stuff, a little more attack rather than just rely on command. And he gets his second strikeout here. He's not a high volume strikeout guy. His last start, which was not a great one in St. Pete, he had just 3.
And he's sneaky fast. That's the difference that Wei-Yin Chen possesses. His body shows little effort in throwing the baseball, and his arm, that's where most of the speed happens. You watch a lot of left-handed pitchers where they bend with the upper body to use not only the legs but also the torso.
On the ground, Bohr has it. And Nick Markakis is retired on 1 pitch. And so 2 outs. Here comes Francoeur.
Wei-Yin is completely different. He's more upright. You see him when he releases the baseball compared to a lot of other lefties where they get down and their upper half is parallel to the ground. Wei-Yin's upper half half is not at all parallel to the ground. Watch how he stays straight up. He releases. And there's no bend on the upper half.
Ball and a strike. Jeff Francoeur equaled a career high with 4 hits last night. Francoeur, guys, had a lot of success against lefties. Here the term max effort pitchers. Francoeur is a max effort swinger.
I like max effort swingers as long as they know where that bat head is at all times.
I guess the challenge for Francoeur from even the early days as a Brave till now is it's okay to be a max effort swinger. But dialing in that strike zone and swinging at strikes can be a challenge at times. Rolls it off of Prado's glove and into left field. Prado trying to cut in front of Echeverria, which would have been an easier play to get the out.
Watch that last hop. Just kicks up and hits him right on the heel of the glove. Nothing you can do right there. You're Perry Hill. You're thinking he does everything wrong, everything right. Unfortunately for him, it's an error as the ball took a different hop on that last bounce.
Here is Adonis Garcia. And Adonis Garcia fouls it off. Adonis Garcia, when Brian Snitker made out his lineup earlier today, was not in it. And when he found out that Chase Darno, who started at third base last night, was involved in a minor automobile accident on his way to the ballpark, put Garcia in the lineup. Darno is fine. But just as a precaution, the Braves did not start him. A lot of good reviews about Brian Snitker as a person, as a baseball man, as a manager. Coaching staff for the Braves were managing in the minor leagues for the last 40 seasons. And really handed an impossible job. Same circumstances certainly for Freddie Garcia, Freddie Gonzalez, who was let go. Freddie Garcia did pitch for the Braves.
He did?
Yeah, he did. So. No, I mean, Freddie Gonzalez in a no-win situation to begin the season, and now Snitker takes the reins, and he's in that same spot. As the Braves wait for the young players that they acquired in all of those trades, which gutted the Major League roster, to get here, and they're not here yet.
A lot of talent that's on its way, and it's just a matter of time. I was wondering when Chen was going to try to go out of the zone after going fastball there up. This is a type of hitter, Garcia, that you don't necessarily have to throw another strike. Good breaking ball down in the dirt would get the job done. Oh, we're thinking alike. Garcia took it.
Garcia, the 31-year-old Cuban, his countryman Hector Oliveira, not with the Braves, suspended right now 80 games for violating Major League Baseball's domestic violence policy. That one fouled into the glove of Real Muto. Another strikeout for Wei-Yin Chen. He's got 3, Fish up 2. T-Mobile brings you greater coverage of Major League Baseball. Last night, Albert Pujols, 570, goes past Rafael Palmeiro. Next up, Harmon Killebrew. Curtis Granderson had a not-so-good night until the end. His walk-off shot beat the Dodgers after Juris Familia melted down in the ninth inning. And Josh Donaldson is hot. 4 for 5, a triple shy of the cycle, couple home runs. Marcell Ozuna is up, and a fastball taken for a strike.
See how Wei Yin Chen talks to Juan Nieves about what he feels in the tempo of going towards the plate.
Chen has an interpreter. In fact, the Marlins travel with 3 interpreters. One for Chen, one for Ichiro, and one for the Latin players as well. But Chen does speak English, does need help on occasion, especially in a more comprehensive conversation. Same with Ichiro. Ichiro can and does carry on conversations with all of his teammates, both in English and in Spanish. Ozuna swings and misses. Count 2-2. Justin Bour, JT Realmuto against Aaron Blair.
Good take by Marcell. Those are the pitches that he used to swing at. Now recognizing it a bit more, gets a 3-2 count, being closer to the plate allows him to have more time to recognize. Changeup.
Blair on a straight change.
That's a sand pitch. Ended up getting Martin Prado on.
So 3 strikeouts from the right-hander. It's odd because Blair grew up in Las Vegas. That's a baseball hotbed. I mean, you think about all the terrific players.
Harper, Bryant.
There's a strike. And he ended up going to college in Huntington, West Virginia at Marshall University. And it has a South Florida twist to it. There's the 0-1. If you live up near Jupiter, you know that that complex that the Marlins share with the Cardinals is a hotbed for high school baseball showcases, tournaments, all of that, year-round. And Blair was playing summer ball and ended up in a tournament in Jupiter. And the coaching staff of Marshall University, along with a lot of other colleges, I mean, they're rows deep. The coaching staff from Marshall University saw him, liked him, offered him a scholarship. And Blair said he took the visit, loved it, and committed. Bour to right, Markakis is there, and he makes the catch. And so Blair ended up at Marshall University, not a baseball hotbed, had a really nice career there, and was a first-round draft pick, 36th overall, so a supplemental pick of the Diamondbacks. And I went back to see at Marshall University. They're known, obviously, for their football program. Randy Moss, Chad Pennington, even the tragic plane crash in the early 70s. There aren't a whole lot of baseball names, but there are a few. Dan Straley, who pitched for the A's. Jeff Montgomery.
You're a broadcaster right now with the Royals.
Billy Donovan coached there before he ended up at Florida. So yeah, a thundering herd right-hander. Now Jeff Montgomery was an original draft pick of the Reds and ended up a really nice closer for the Kansas City Royals. Rick Reed of the Pirates also. That one is cranked, but is hooking and is way foul into the deep, dark recess of the Marlins bullpen. There it is.
Put it in the bag.
It hasn't stopped rolling yet. It's still settling in there.
Well, he just threw him that fastball up and in. Good time for that changeup he's been throwing effectively. Went with a breaking ball.
Little pop down the line, and it's foul. It's funny to look at that little wedge in left field, and we talked about the history of this facility last year. It was an Olympic stadium that seated 85,000. Somewhere when they reconstructed this for baseball, they thought, you know, there's a seam. Let's leave a little crack here for a bullpen.
It just seems like they forgot about the bullpen, and they're like, oh yeah, wait a second.
There's that exit we've got. Let's just clear some space. That one is foul and into the upper reaches.
Wasn't it in San Francisco where they forgot to put the bullpens in
the original design?
In the original design?
It was such a tight footprint in San Francisco that they decided, let's just throw them down in the foul territory. There's a soft liner to center field. Nice at bat. JT Realmuto.
See how baseballs in that location, the Fox tracks were everywhere from inside to down to away. JT was able to salvage a base hit out of that quality at bat.
Dietrich's base hit was between third baseman Adonis Garcia and the third base line. And Garcia, for this at bat, is closer to the line than he was. Marlins Live tomorrow. Find out where Derek Dietrich used to go and hang out in college. Georgia Tech shortstop. We thought his favorite meal would be the varsity, but we were wrong. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, get it in you, Jess.
The food was obviously the priority. I mean, the interview was fun, but come on, let's not kid around. The food was incredible. But no, Derek Dietrich and I had a great conversation yesterday as he gets hit by another pitch that happens to Dietz all the time. We talked about that on the ride there. That didn't come up in the interview, but that's something that we did discuss in the car ride over. But some of the topics we got into, he had the opportunity to be drafted straight out of high school. Instead, he chose to play college baseball. We talked about his time in the big leagues, and also I got to the bottom of how Derek Dietrich became a juggler. So that's all going to come up in that interview tomorrow. That's going to air on our Marlins Live pregame show.
You know, it's all of that's cool stuff, Jess, and I'm looking forward to it. He's a fascinating guy. If you follow the Marlins over the last couple of years, you know that his grandfather was a prodigious minor league slugger, a minor league manager as well, Steve Demeter, who taught him the game. It was at a spring training game this year against the Red Sox. Joe Castiglione, the radio voice of the Red Sox, told Dietrich that he saw his grandfather play. And Derek said he really hadn't run into too many people that had firsthand knowledge or had seen his grandfather play.
And Dietrich did talk a lot about that relationship with his grandfather. That's part of the reason why he ended up at Georgia Tech. We know that piece of advice that his grandfather used to give him about everything in life, not just baseball, let it fly. And he's got that tattooed on one of his wrists. That relationship is so incredibly important to Derek Dietrich.
And there he is. There is Steve Demeter. Although he did not sign "Let It Fly" on his photo there. It's a great story. Gillespie up here with a chance to do more damage with 2 outs. Realmuto and Dietrich out there. Gillespie took a shot in right field and he strikes out. Miami leads 2 and leads it by 2. Marlins a 2-0 lead, bottom of the third. Royal Perez said that infamous ATV was around. It has its own parking spot. It looks like something Chipper Jones would be driving. I mean, it's all camoed out.
I think Chipper came to the ballpark in it. Come on, Chipper.
Well, Atlanta traffic can be a nightmare, so any chance to take a shortcut probably is welcome. There it is. That's the bobblehead tonight. Daniel Castro, Aaron Blair, Mallex Smith. Castro getting the start at shortstop. Eric Ibar last night was hit by a pitch in the ankle, left the game. Listed as day-to-day. Castro is in to start this one. Center field. Ozuna there. And he makes the catch. And that'll bring up Aaron Blair. Our baseball historian is Kevin Barnes, and he points out that not only was Aaron Blair from Las Vegas, and we noted some of the modern day players, but Greg Maddux and his brother Mike, Las Vegas guys. Bryce Harper, Joey Gallo, also a Las Vegas player.
Chris Carter also.
Yeah, Mike Dunn. We hope Mike Dunn is back soon. And it sounds like everything is going well with his road back to the big leagues. That Tuesday night game with the Pirates is a 7-10 start. Big discounts. The new Steals and Deals Tuesday ticket offer. Discounted tickets in most seating categories on Tuesday home games. Go to Marlins.com today. Mallex Smith. And it's 0-1. So first time through. Wei Chen has been sharp. Prado dives on his knees. Throws out Smith. Nice play by Martin Prado. Nice inning from Wei Chen. Into the fourth in Atlanta. It's 2-0 Miami. weekend in Atlanta. A 4 o'clock holiday start. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock start. Marlins home on Monday night against the Pirates. Fish go to work in the 4th. Adeiny Echeverria, Wei-Yin Chen, and Ichiro. Marlins trying to beat the Braves for the first time this year. Marlins did not lose ground from the top of the East with that loss yesterday. Still 3.5 back, but there's 2 on the top now, the Mets and the Nationals. The Mets, who blew a 5-1 lead in the 9th and then won it on a Granderson walk-off homer last night. Caught the Nationals, who lost to the Cardinals last night. High chopper. That used to be a chopper to chipper back in the day, as Skip Carey used to say.
Chopper to chipper. See how the bottom half of the Marlins lineup has been doing the damage. So far, 2-0 in the top of the 4th.
All right, you want to put any money or odds down on Wei-Yin Chen's first major league hit?
No, not yet. I like him in the dugout right now when you have a lead 2-0. I don't want him on the bases. Doing a nice job on the mound.
I'll go early July.
Oh, you're talking about the date. I thought it was about today, the odds of him getting a hit here. You say early July?
Yeah, because I like him back in the dugout right now, too. He's 0 for 22. And he brings a ground ball with him to the right side. Beckham gets the out. But it's coming. One of those ground balls is going to find its way through. Scott Pruitt telecast presented by the authority of the Marlins may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. Accounts and descriptions of the game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Miami Marlins. Ichiro reached on an error and walked. His double last night, his 4th double of the season. He's not homered. Blair with a fastball misses in. Both pitches right at that right shoe top of Ichiro, who last year had 1 homer. In 2014, 1 homer. But in his major league career, he's hit 113 homers. Did not like that call, with good reason. In fact, I think it was a call like that that prompted Ichiro's only ejection in his career. As I remember it, he actually drew a line in the dirt with his bat.
That's a ball.
That's a ball. Lays the bat down. As I remember, he didn't yell or scream. He just kind of looked at the home plate umpire and then drew a line with his bat, and that was an automatic ejection.
The look of Ichiro says it all, and then obviously you cannot do anything with the bat drawing the line. But good at bat, especially after Chen getting to the dugout, giving him a little bit more time to get ready to go back out there. Maybe the Marlins can do something here.
Prado rolls it up the middle, and the Braves get that out at seconds. Aaron Blair has tightened it up for the Braves. Miami leads at 2-0. Miami Marlins baseball on Fox Sports Florida is brought to you by the all-new 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. By Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. And by Checkers, fast foodies know the deal. What do you have? What do you have at the Varsity? An institution in Atlanta, much like the Braves. Although the Braves are moving uptown, I guess, as they head northwest of downtown for their new home.
Traffic is really nasty around this area.
Wait a minute. You just realizing that? SunTrust Park in 2017, next year. Gordon Beckham. The new ballpark is approximately 10 miles north of here. It will seat 41,500. It's next to the Cobb Galleria. Liner to right center field, well hit. Ozuna and Ichiro in the gap to get it. It gets to the wall, Beckham to second, on his way to third, and he is in there. Ozuna couldn't get it cleanly before it got to the wall, and once it got there, that's almost 400 feet from home plate at that point.
Well, this grass here is cut thin and it is very fast. Gets by Marcel right there. Not able to get down and converted this double into a triple. Now with no outs, Marlins are up by 2. Infield will stay back. That's Gordon Beckham blowing his bubble down the line. Is at third, and the official scoring is a double with an error on Marcell Ozuna, the center fielder.
So Chan against Freeman, and the fastball misses in. The Marlins are conceding this run with a ground ball either up the middle or to the right side. Ozuna gets an error. Beckham gets third base.
You're going full speed to your left. Infield conceding the run.
Chen gets a strike. Freeman a strikeout back in the first. 3 strikeouts for Chen. Two and two. Check swing, held Real Muto. Did it hit the ground? It must have.
I think you have to ask for help right here. Have to ask Dan Anasonia at third base.
Let's see if it hits the ground.
It did not.
It did not. Oh. It looked like a clean catch.
That's a strikeout. That right there should be a strikeout. Look at it again. This ball does not hit the ground at all. It's in the mitt. This is a big hit at bat.
Well, the count's still 2-2. And that's a foul ball. Now, back to that other pitch, it looked like the home plate umpire, Ben May, made the signal that it was a foul tip. The one that Real Muto caught. There was a time where Dan Anasonia was alerted at third, but he made no ruling. 2-2. It's a good pitch and on the hands of Freeman. Beckham's double. First hit of the day for the Braves. Freeman stays alive with that swing.
That missed call right there on the foul tip already has added 3 pitches to Chen. See what they're trying to do with Freeman is keep it hard in. Do not let his arms get extended.
He is right on the Major League average for pitches per plate appearance. Pitch number 10 of the at-bat coming here. Got him! How about that? Wayne Chen strikes out Freddie Freeman. So he has an out with Beckham at third.
Through that slider on the 10th pitch. Down the middle of the plate, gets him out in front a bit. Freddie Freeman trying to keep the bat head in the zone long enough, but could not.
Now Flowers, middle infield's back. Prado has crept in a bit at third. Bohr fairly deep at first. Braves trying to get on the board. Miami scored twice in the second. Bottom of the order coming up with big hits for the Fish. Major League average in this spot 50-50. Last few years it's been right around 50-51%. That's getting the runner home from third with less than 2 outs.
Pitchers bear down. They start making more effective pitches out of the strike zone. The hitters get anxious.
And of course,
this is interesting right here what Don Mattingly is doing with 2 strikes, bringing the infield in up 2-0. Trying to maintain and keep the shutout.
Realmuto maintains it himself by blocking that breaking ball. So once the count got to 2 strikes, the infield's up on the grass. Markakis is on deck. Flowers struck out in the second. The 2-2 here. Popped up. Bohr. And that's into the seats.
Nice catch by the fan. That's what the Marlins are hoping for also.
Better with runners on. Got Beckham at third. Infield in 2-2. And the 3-2. Missed low with a breaking ball. At the corners now. And here is Markakis.
Good at bat by Flowers. Not expanding in the zone as Juan Nieves will do 2 things with this visit. One, let him know how to attack Nick Markakis, but more importantly, giving his pitcher some time to regroup.
News and notes from around baseball, just perusing what's happened today. Kansas City Royals had that awful collision the other night. They lost a couple of players. Salvador Perez in a collision today in foul territory. Had to be helped off the field, could not put weight on his leg. We're awaiting word as to the severity of the injury for the All-Star catcher. Here now Markakis, who's 0 for 1. Chen trying to hang on to a 2-0 lead in the bottom of the 4th. Lined foul. And that may have tied it just with that swing.
Royals lose Perez for a while. It's going to be tough for them to replace that defense and that leadership.
A 1. It's in the dirt. Well, they lost the other night. Mike Moustakas out with a torn ACL. I believe Alex Gordon was injured.
Alex Gordon's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Moustakas the entire season with the ACL surgery. And now Perez, that already has had history of the knee beginning of his career.
Ball and a strike. Markakis Braves at the corners.
Good pitch.
For a strike, and it's 1-2.
And just to let you know that when the injury to Perez happened, it was in the top of the 9th inning. 7-1 they were losing. What did the Kansas City Royals do in the bottom half? Score 6 and tie it at 7.
Wow. No lead is safe in baseball these last few days. Back to the screen. Dodgers and Chase Utley with a big moment last night. And the bases loaded double to tie that game, even though Granderson walked off with the game winner as the Mets beat the Dodgers in New York. Markakis battling here. Chen. Pop up. And that's into the shade and into the seats. And these shadows, you see those seats that are in the shade, the shadows are just about to envelop home plate, which is the witching hour for hitters. A good number of Chen's 67 pitches have come in this inning. One, two. No swing. And the pitch was out.
That right there is a tough check swing call for Dan Azaña at third base because of the shadows leading up to that play.
Markakis, right center. It's well hit. Ozuna going back at the track. Makes the catch. Tagging and scoring is Gordon Beckham. Braves on the board. Miami's lead cut in half. And the ball that scooted under Ozuna's glove to start the inning, turning Beckham's double into 3 bases. Seems rather large here.
Nice piece of hitting by Nick Markakis, and a really good job by Marcell Ozuna to get that ball back in a hurry. Not a lot of speed at first base.
Frank Coor after the first pitch.
surprising.
Kevin Barnes is our baseball historian, though even he might have a hard time with this one. I wonder how many at-bats Frank Cora's had in his career where he's gone after the first pitch. Because that's his reputation, right? I mean, that's his reputation. First pitch.
You're so wrong. You're so wrong.
There's got, look, there's a he's throwing his hands up in the air. He's walked out of the room. We've lost our baseball historian.
Just throw a number out there.
0-2 pitch. It's fouled back and out of play. No, look, I'm sure someone out there watching the game has much better access to information because they're essentially watching the game with the laptop open. Maybe they can find it quickly on the internet. We have to call the game and pay attention to Frank Cora in this 0-2 pitch with 2 outs. Frank Cora bounced that one off his foot. And down he goes. Two-1. Marlins on top, bottom 4 in Atlanta. Don Mattingly, when he met the media today and was asked about the game last night, and a few of the questions were along the lines of, "Oh, that was a tough break last night." He'd had none of it. He said, "Look, we didn't do enough to win the game." He said, in this league, at this level, you have to win games. You can't just get a lead and then just play out the string and expect to win. And he said last night, in his opinion, the Marlins did not do enough to win last night's game. You have to go out and win it. You just can't score a few runs and then shake hands at the end of the game without making plays, adding on.
Joe Madden calls that the jug runs. Go after the jugular. Keep adding runs. Mentally demoralize your opponent. Don't let him creep back in. Right now, Frank Cora is killing the budget with all the foul balls he's hitting. A lot of happy fans.
Oh, 2. Off of Prado's glove again into left field. Martin Prado last year led National League third baseman in fielding percentage. So he's a sure-handed guy. This is going to be a base hit. But this is going to be a series where Prado is going to have to wash this one out of his memory.
We see the angle where he started across and then had to take a couple steps back. Barry Hill says ball hits dirt, you charge. Instead of coming in and across, decided to just go straight left, then was caught in between. Those are tough balls to pick. Once it hits that dirt, it just takes off.
Garcia fouls it off.
He had bad intentions with that swing.
And this long inning continues for Chen. "37 pitches this inning. In the dirt, Real Muto smothers it. Jose Urena is up. Well, you don't often see that with a guy like Chen 4th inning, a 2-1 lead, and someone's up in the pen. But when you get to 38 pitches in an inning, that causes some alarm. Chopper, Echeverria to second in time. This time Prado let it go through. And a long inning ends. The Marlins still lead it. It's 2-1.
Where the Marlins lead it 2-1. Voting has begun for the 2016 All-Star Game, and there are multiple Marlins players who deserve consideration. How about Marcell Ozuna, who is due up for the fish? He has been dominant at the plate. For Jose Fernandez, who now has 90 strikeouts on the season. To cast your vote, go to marlins.mlb.com, click on the All-Star tab, and make your selections. You can vote until June 30th, up to 35 times, 5 times in a given 24-hour period. Guys.
All right, thank you, Jess. Certainly for the Fish, their all-star hopes will be enhanced if by the time they get to late June, early July, the Marlins are over 500 and hanging in the East. Marcell Ozuna, Justin Bour, JT Realmuto, and Aaron Blair misses down low.
Well, this inning is big for the Marlins. They better take their time offensively, try to get a couple hits. That's what Don Mattingly would want, to give Chen a break after so many pitches in the bottom half.
Daniel Castro and Ozuna out number 1 here in the 5th. In honor of Memorial Weekend, Fox Sports is teaming up with Merging Vets and Players. It's dedicated to ensuring our nation's warriors can be as productive off the field as they were on it. That's by joining combat veterans with former athletes to form a common bond over dedication and teamwork. Visit foxsportsupports.com to learn more. Justin Bour. Swing and a miss. Bour going with the sunglasses at the plate. Now he's in the shadows, the mound in the sunshine. That's not fun.
It's not fun, but he's going with those red persimmon glasses. Actually brightens everything up, including the seams, and it cancels out the shadows. Not a bad idea.
Bour hooks that one. Castro, the shortstop, makes the play. And Blair has done exactly what he wanted to do. Get a couple quick outs. Realmuto coming up. As we pointed out, Wei-Yin Chen, 39 pitches in that 4th inning.
This is a good time for JT Realmuto to get something in his contact lens if he wears it. And even if he doesn't, act like you have him. Get some eye drops or something.
Or get a first pitch fastball. He jumped on it. Smith back. A 6-pitch inning. And so we'll see how Chen fares when he comes back out in a 2-1 game. Is the presenting sponsor of Miami Marlins baseball. The old Olympic torch. Turner Field, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, just off the old site, just off in the distance. Wei-Yin Chen threw 39 pitches in the 4th, gave up just a run. Was tiring, and the Marlins bullpen was up. He does have 8-9-1 here in the 5th. 81 pitches in. That's the amazing thing. 39 pitches in that 4th. 42 pitches combined the first 3 innings. Castro fouls it back. Phillies lost again to the Cubs 4-1. So that's good news for the Marlins, and so is that. Strikeout number 5 for Wei-Yin Chen. That's a 4-game series that starts on Monday with the Pirates, and on Wednesday, kids eat free. 7:10 start. Every child 12 and under gets free KMB Frank bag of Frito-Lay chips, small Pepsi or Aquafina water. Tickets at marlins.com. Chen filling up the strike zone now. This is Blair. Kansas City did end up winning that ball game 8-7. Blair's bouncer finds Dietrich. And now top of the order, Malik Smith. Mets tonight hosting the Dodgers again. baseball. That is baseball night in America on Big Fox, the Dodger Met game. And then Nationals and Cardinals in D.C. tonight as well. It's an Adam Wainwright, Gio Gonzalez matchup. Kenta Maeda and Noah Syndergaard, the matchup for the Dodgers and the Mets. And just to show that the crack staff isn't all about scoreboard watching and all of that, Jeff Francoeur, 2,355 plate appearances in his big league career, has swung at the first pitch 43.3% of the time. Chen has it, wheels, deals, and Bohr kept the foot on the bag. Malik Smith is out. A 1-2-3 inning. Just what the Marlins needed. 9 pitches this inning. Go MLB moment 2006. Barry Bonds hits home run number 715 to pass Babe Ruth's second all-time. Our good buddy BK Kim gave it up at AT&T Park. Bonds in his first year back in uniform since his playing days. Marlins hitting coach, he and Marcell Ozuna. Those two have been terrific for each other. Derek Dietrich, Cole Gillespie, Danny Echeverria. 2-1 ball game. This one kind of following a similar script to last night. And at the outset of the show, I turned to you, Eduardo Perez, baseball analyst, and I said, why can't the Marlins beat the Braves? And you looked at the numbers, and one of the things that jumped out, the Marlins haven't hit against the Braves. They haven't added runs on against the Braves. Dietrich, shift is on, and that time the shift gets Dietrich. And right now the Marlins can't add on to this 2-run output. Braves pitching is better in May than it was in April.
Well, their pitching hasn't been the problem this month of May. It's been all about the offense not being able to get the run in from scoring position. Coming into the series, they were 4 for 58 for a .075 batting average. That won't do it much. Their bullpen has been a lot better. They're going deeper into the ball games, and the starters are going deeper into the ball games. That helps a lot.
And to Don Mattingly's point after last night's game, when he said the Marlins did not do enough to win the game last night. You have to go out and win games. You can't just try to maintain a lead and call it good. A few more runs in this one would be nice. Markakis, it's just foul. Gillespie, a bid for extra bases. And Gillespie was in the middle of the 2-run rally in the second when he tripled off the wall in center. That scored Derek Dietrich. Gillespie scored on Echeverria's hit. Ball and 2 strikes. Two O's in the Braves pen. Alexi Ogando on the right, Eric O'Flaherty on the left. That strike 3 called. Gillespie didn't like it.
I don't like it either. Just a bit outside, most likely. See where it is, kissing the outer part. But as I was told when I was a young player, with 2 strikes, open up the zone, try to protect. Cole was caught looking. Tough one, especially with the shadows.
And Chavarria takes a strike. How much better does it get in 45 minutes to an hour when the mound is in the shadows, yet there's still light in the outfield? That one is going to find center field, a hit for Echeverria, his second in the ballgame.
Hit them both in the same angle, and it gets a lot easier when you're both in the shadows. Able to see the seams a lot sooner than later, and I think that's the biggest part as we see Christian Yelich now coming in to pinch hit for Chen.
And so Yelich pinch hits, pinch penny presenting that. And I think Eric O'Flaherty's going to come rolling in from the bullpen. Snicker coming out. We'll talk it over with Blair. And plate umpire Ben May trying to force a decision.
I don't think he's buying time. I think he might just leave him in. Nope, he's taking him out.
There's a reliever coming in.
There he is.
Yeah. You know what? I think that reliever came in before the signal.
Right.
O'Flaherty is halfway out and onto the outfield. Kendall Toyota called to the bullpen. seemed like just a standard pitching change. But before Brian Snitker pointed to the bullpen, Eric O'Flaherty was like 60, 70 feet on the outfield grass trotting in. And had Snitker wanted to stay with Aaron Blair, he would not have been able to. Once a reliever crosses the warning track, manager has to make a change. So Snitker did make the change. Number 2, Christian Yelich hitting in this spot. Eduardo Perez tells us what?
Tells us he's not ready to play defense in the outfield. Bring him in early in a situation where you're looking for an extra base hit with a fast runner down the line. Get him some at-bats. This is a way for him to see some live pitching.
Yelich, Echeverry at first, O'Flaherty. That also means Wei-Yin Chen is finished.
He had 2 high-stress innings in the 5 innings of work. A lot of pitches, 90 pitches.
A lot of pitches for what looks like a really clean line. 2 hits, a run, a walk, 5 strikeouts.
A lot of foul balls. They just kept working and working him, and now this becomes a battle of the bullpens. O'Flaherty a few years back, when he was a Brave before leaving the organization, was an automatic out of the pen. Not anymore.
Strike 3 call. Yelich bad on shoulder. Strikes out. O'Flaherty tough to see in that shadow. Still 2-1. Here is SunTrust Park, northwest of Atlanta, about 10 miles. Cobb County, $622 million beautiful park, 41,500 the capacity, and it's right next to the Cobb Galleria. Cool features include. Oh, there he is, under wraps. We found him.
Eat more chicken.
We found the evil cow, the evil tomahawk chopping Chick-fil-A cow is under wraps, no longer here at Turner Fields, getting ready for the season opener next year. Jose Urena takes over.
Until he puts that tilde on top of the N. For me, in English, I'll say Jose Urena.
Listen to you, stickler. Here's Gordon Beckham, Freddie Freeman, Tyler Flowers. Chin 5 innings. Urena now. And, you know, again, it's the Marlins and the Braves. The Braves swept in Miami. Came from behind to beat the Marlins last night. And the Marlins looked like they had Aaron Blair figured out early, but he's kept it close. Ozuna has it. He has been chased to the Bank of America a few times today.
Oh, he's not allowing right there any deposit being made whatsoever with a nice play going back. Full out stride. Getting very good jumps in center field.
Freddie Freeman struck out twice against Chen. A couple hits last night. Two balls and a strike. And into right field, that's a base hit. Marlins had an extreme pull shift with Echeverria not over on that first base side. And so look at the, I mean, you can't even see in that shot Derek Dietrich.
No, that just tells you the amount of times that Freddie Freeman pulls the ball. Extreme pull.
So let me ask you then, as someone who was a bench coach for the Astros, if you bring Dietrich that far over to the right, don't you have to bring Echeverria with him, or do the charts say he'll pull it, but he'll also hit it to shortstop?
He will, and you saw on that chart right there, just on the graphic of 12 to left, 13 to center, he balances it out, hitting it also to the right side, but when he pulls, it's an extreme pull. And most of the time, Perry Hill and his staff will get that right.
So we know to Tyler Flowers, who has struck out and walked. And Ureña's got 3-0 to Flowers, and he lost him. And so here comes Nick Markakis as the Marlins bullpen trying to protect a 2-1 lead. You can see Don Mattingly working the gum.
This is a situation where Don Mattingly needs to try to bridge it all the way to A.J. Ramos. You have a 2-1 game, bottom of the 6th inning. Yesterday, Whitgren threw 31 pitches. Barraclough 22 in 1 inning of work, and David Phelps threw 26 high-stress pitches in that inning of work.
Markakis the sacrifice fly, producing Atlanta's only run in the 4th, and he's bounced out. Coors Light, cold hard facts. Have not won consecutive home games since sweeping the Cardinals to finish 2015. And for Snicker, the win yesterday was his first home win in his 2nd week on the job. 1-2 coming. Count even, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Well, the Braves are a nice job of chewing up pitches for Wei-Yin Chen, especially in that 4th inning when he threw 39, even though Atlanta got just the 1 run. Full count.
This were a tie game. You wonder if Brian Snitker would send the runners with a contact hitter like Markakis. Down 1, I do not see that happening.
You've got Freeman at second, and then the catcher Flowers at first, who's not being held.
It's only because of Markakis being that contact guy.
To center, it gets by Ozuna, and it goes to the wall. Freeman will score. Flowers will score. Markakis to third, and the Braves have the lead. It's a single with an RBI and the second error of the game for Marcell Ozuna.
Well, Marcell commits to this baseball. Wants to try to make the play in the air, and that's the toughest play for a center fielder, thinking you have an opportunity to do so. But once he commits, he's caught in no man's land. See how the ball dives down? Ball gets through, and now Tyler Flowers, probably the slowest.
Ozuna, straight back. Over the wall. Ground rule double for Francoeur. And just like that, Miami's lead is long gone. It's 4-2. First pitch swinging, as he does so many times. Francoeur makes it 4-2.
Well, things can turn in a hurry. A seeing eye base hit by Freddie Freeman, a walk, then that hit in an error, and now a double. Jeff Francoeur has been swinging an unbelievable bat. So far this series, his 6th double of the season. Juan Nieves trying to settle down Ureña on the mound, as that man right there knows he made a mistake coming in hard.
Now Garcia, and Ureña gets a strike. Oh for 2. And Real Muto digs it out of the dirt, and Ureña right now not sharp. Those last 2 balls hit extremely hard. The walk to Flowers costly. The Braves, who couldn't get a hit with runners in scoring position until last night, have 3 of those today. 3 for 5. And again, we posed that question at the top of the telecast. Here are the Marlins, over 500, hanging in there in the East, just 3.5 back. Yet they could not beat the Braves in their first 4 games. And the Braves, historically bad this year record-wise. And this is kind of the formula and the reason why the Marlins haven't been able to, when they've had opportunities, push more runs across than they initially get. The Braves are able to hang around. As they did last night, the Braves came back against Miami's bullpen.
Kenny Ravizza, longtime Angels sports psychologist, now with the Chicago Cubs, always said it's about attitude. especially with who you play against. And the Atlanta Braves sweeping the Marlins at home in Miami had a different attitude when the Marlins were coming in here. They believe they can beat them, and it's up to the Marlins to change that attitude by being aggressive offensively and making the fundamental plays defensively.
Up the middle, Echeverria slides, hops, throws, and gets him at first base. Terrific play by Adani Echeverria. Francoeur ends up at third.
That saved another run right there. And that's what you want. That could change the tide for you. Making a play like that, getting up. Nice stretch by Justin at first base. That's a Cuban taking away a hit from another Cuban.
With that, here is Castro. And he takes outside. Daniel Castro is 0 for 2. Infield back. It's 2-0. You've got the pitcher spot up next. Kelly Johnson has a bat. Daniel Castro is lined out, struck out. You documented the workload for the pen last night. Nick Whitgren, Kyle Barraclough, David Phelps, after only a 4 1/3 inning start by Adam Conley. You get another short start here. Ran Chen 5 innings. Miami's next day off isn't until June 6th. Full count, 3-2. That one had the plate right at the bottom of the knees. Count stays full. Three runs here in the 6th. Another 3-2. In the air. Real Muto for a look. And it's into the SunTrust Club, which is the name of the seats right behind home plate. Remember, Chen had that 39 pitch inning. There you go. It's good to be part of the club. Urania has 33 pitches here. And he gets him. Castro strikes out, but the Braves strike for 3. A big error in center and a 4-2 Atlanta lead. who struck out as a pinch hitter in this ball game, and Giancarlo Stanton watching on the rail. Stanton, in all likelihood, not available to pinch hit. Yelich pinch hit last night and walked, pinch hit today and struck out, but the bat never left his shoulder. He did not swing at a pitch.
He did not. Good sign, though, to see G with a sleeve on. Usually when he's shut down, there's no sleeve.
So keep that in mind if this thing gets late. As the Marlins find themselves down 2 with 3 innings left as afternoon turns to evening in Atlanta. Ichiro's walked twice, and he sends one out to center field. It's Malik Smith there to catch it. Hit it on the button. He's 0 for 2. Ryan Snitker is out of the Braves dugout. Prado on deck. O'Flaherty has given his skipper 4 outs, or excuse me, 2 outs out of the pen. And this Kendall Toyota call to the bullpen will involve a double switch. That we are sure.
Sports honors our fallen warriors. An avid outdoor sportsman, Jonathan Gibson enlisted in the Navy and dedicated himself to becoming a pilot. After being commissioned as an officer, Jonathan joined Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 6 and was deployed to the Middle East. But in 2013, Jonathan was killed when his Nighthawk helicopter went down in the Red Sea. Fox Sports honors Navy Chief Warrant Officer 3, Jonathan Gibson.
We will be honoring our country's warriors throughout this Memorial Day weekend, all the way through Monday night's game in Miami against the Pirates. Here on a Saturday in Atlanta, the Braves lead the Marlins 4-2. And Martin Prado takes a strike. Chase Darno's day started out with an auto accident that took him out of the Braves starting lineup, but he finds himself in now in a double switch in the 9 spot. Alexi Ogando will pitch and hit in the 7 spot. Ogando, a big arm. Former Texas Ranger. This is away. It's 1-1. A frustrating day for the Fish. A 2-0 lead. Chances to add on. A couple of errors in center field by Marcell Ozuna. 3 errors total by the Fish. Martin Prado sprays one to Freeman, who gathers it up and gets the out. And here comes Ozuna. So 3 errors by Miami. And yet, as the innings would evolve, all 4 runs are earned. Ozuna has not reached base. He's 0 for 3. And so his streak of reaching base at 34 has not been extended. He's got a 9-game hit streak as well. Count goes 2-0. You know, you add to the 4-2 deficit the fact that Don Mattingly is playing with an extremely short bench. He has used Christian Yelich as a pinch hitter. Odds are that Giancarlo Stanton is not available. He's already into his bullpen after just a 5-inning start from Wei-Yin Chen. And when Jackson in Miami's pen, 3-0 to Ozuna with Bohr on deck. At the knees, it's 3-1.
Stay down there. You see all 4 pitches. Down and away. Not trying to give Marcelo anything up in the zone.
That's strike 2. Ozuna tossed the bat and was Ben May had a different opinion.
Well, you see where the catcher wants it. You see where the pitch is, and Marcelo Ozuna looking, knowing the strike zone.
Let's see what Ogando comes back with here. 3-2. That is low and outside, and Ozuna walks.
That continues the on-base streak.
So the on-base streak is alive at 35 straight. Louis Castillo in that record-setting year of 2002 had 46. The all-time record. Kevin Millar, Logan Morrison had a 42-gamer. Ryan Snitker not shy about going to that bullpen.
Not at all.
And he's headed there again. Kendall Toyota called to the pen. The top of the 7th. End of the road trip brought to you by JetBlue in Atlanta. Coverage starts. Marlins live 4:30. 5 o'clock start as the Fish And the Braves and their 3-gamer. Tom Kohler, Julio Teheran, the pitching matchup tomorrow night. All right, Hunter Cervenka, lefty, comes in, and the Marlins will pinch hit here. Justin Bour comes out, and Chris Johnson is in. So Johnson against the lefty. He takes a fastball down low.
CJ having a few at-bats in Tampa Bay is game ready. His timing is there, and he had a nice showing his last game against the Rays, going deep.
Two and 0. Cervenka last year was pitching for the Sugarland Skeeters of the Independent League. Braves signed him into the minor leagues. He went. He pitched incredibly well. 34 appearances without giving up an earned run. How about that?
That'll get you back up to the big leagues.
Lefties just 3 for 28 with 11 strikeouts against him. So those are the extreme numbers that Don Mattingly was looking at when he made this swap.
CJ was committed to that pitch no matter where it was before it was even thrown. Pitch never showing like it was going to be a strike. Fastball, you see where it was on the Fox tracks, way down.
Full count. Ozuna moves from first with 2 outs. Backdoor breaking ball. Cervenka opened his Braves career with 15 consecutive scoreless innings before giving up a run against the Royals 2 weeks ago. Now the 3-2. And you got to know that for all the players that are toiling in the independent leagues right now, they see a guy like Cervenka get a shot and take advantage of it. Those guys that are making $1,000, $1,500 a month, if that. Johnson, right center field. Smith and Markakis. That's Markakis who makes the catch. And Miami's hopes done in the 7th. Here, bottom 7, Miami on the board first. This is Cole Gillespie. Triple off the wall in center field. Marlins were in business. This was the 2nd inning. Denny Echeverria would knock home the 2nd run. In a 2-0 lead, Wei-Yin Chen, though, wobbled here. Nick Markakis, a sacrifice fly that scored Gordon Beckham. Into the 6th inning, Jose Urena relieved Wei-Yin Chen. Markakis again. This would be an RBI single and an error on Marcell Ozuna. 2 runs scored, and then Jeff Francoeur over Ozuna. An RBI double. 4-2 Braves. Both teams are into their bullpen, and Atlanta is beating Miami 4-2 as the 7th inning stretch comes to a close. Really nice crowd here on this Memorial Day weekend Saturday. Chris Johnson is at first base. He'll stay there after pinch hitting for Justin Bour. Edwin Jackson into the ball game. Edwin Jackson, a Brave last year, and actually fashioned a nice season after struggling for 2 years in the Cubs rotation. 24 games in Atlanta, an ERA of under 3. 23 games with the Cubs, an ERA of 3.19. This would be Chase d'Arnaud in the 9 spot. d'Arnaud fouls it back. Malik Smith and Gordon Beckham will follow.
Had a nice conversation with Chase yesterday and told me that the last 6 months he and his band have been living together. The Venice area.
Not in a van down by the river, though.
No, the band.
I know.
Not by the river. They go to spring training with him. They were in spring training with him and now live with him. And he's telling me that they get their inspiration from everything that happens in the clubhouse or stories that he can tell them. And I imagine today would be another story that they might get a song or a title from.
Well, I mean, there have been a few titles and albums named Crash, and that's essentially what he got. He had a car accident on his way to the ballpark.
How about I got on the wreck before getting to the ballpark? No?
Dave Matthews didn't quite have that angle. 1-2. Fastball. This is in. Andy Colon, director of team travel in the SunTrust Club, working hard.
Always on the phone, always working every angle.
2-2. Fastball up from Edwin Jackson. Last time we saw Manny during a game, he nearly was hit by the Giancarlo Stanton home run that went out of Dodger Stadium last year. Manny was beyond the pavilion in left field, on the phone, working a travel issue.
Better signal out there?
Better signal out there. Full bars out there. And Stanton's ball nearly hit him on the way down. Pitch misses down low. And so d'Arnaud walks. Edwin Jackson trying to keep this at 4-2 and give Miami a shot in the 8th and the 9th.
This is what's hurt the Marlins in the bottom of the 6th inning, and again right now are those walks. After Freeman got the base hit, Tyler Flowers was able to draw a walk. Eventually came around to score.
Smith bunts and pops it foul. Porter giving those signs at third base. Five innings of Wei-Yin Chen. Jose Urena the sixth. Popped up. Oh, Real Muto with a terrific effort. And that's never fun. When you lay out on the on-deck area, you've got all kinds of stuff in the way that you might land on.
Great effort by JT. Watch this. You see the hustle. Have to be able to appreciate that. You see the fans applaud. And also Gordon Beckham actually.
Yeah, Real Muto's got a gash on his right hand.
Yeah, he's got to get that checked.
Yeah, you see. Look at the blood on his pants.
A lot of gravel in that warning track area.
By design. That's the sound and the feel on the cleats when you get to the track. It makes it a lot harder when you go face first and slide on it.
Fortunately for him, his face did not touch that gravel.
The hope, obviously, is that they're able to just patch that up without a lot of work. Don Manley is asking the home plate umpire if Real Muto can actually go in the dugout to get it worked on. All patched up for now. Counts 0-2 on Malik Smith.
To be a catcher.
Remember, Darno's at first. Urban Jackson out in front. Unable to get a big piece of that. It goes all the way to the screen. That's a wild pitch. Marlins on a list you don't want to be on.
That's one thing, though, that Evan Jackson does a lot of because of his slider down, tough to block.
Fastball there.
Edwin trying to go after the strikeout. Malik Smith more of a contact type hitter, trying to get him to chase.
Two balls, two strikes. This is one of the longer at bats. You'll see the stoppage for the Real Muto injury. He's still looking at that right hand. You wonder too if he has to throw the baseball in this half inning.
Well, where the gash looked like, I don't think it'll affect the throwing. So that comes more out of the fingers. But losing Alex Smith on that with no outs.
And he was ahead of him.
And you see the way that Brian Snitker has been managing his short time with the Braves. Loves matchups and loves to tag on runs. And yesterday he did bunt Gordon Beckham right here. So JT Realmuto is putting up the signs right now as you look at the numbers of Gordon Beckham against Edwin Jackson. I wouldn't be surprised though if you try to bunt him. Terry Pendleton relaying.
Beckham last night in a similar spot.
Corners are drawn in for the Marlins, expecting the unexpected just in case. Middle infielders at double play depth.
Jackson's 0-1. There's that slider.
Former SEC Player of the Year for the Bulldogs.
Beckham left center field and deep. Back goes Gillespie, and it's gone. And the Braves crack this one open. He hung the slider. Second homer of the season for Gordon Beckham.
The numbers don't lie. Beckham hits this hanging slider way over the Xfinity sign. Look at the balance. Puts that foot down. Barrels it. 7-2.
Both of his home runs have come in the last 4 days. Freeman takes out. And the Marlins trail the Braves 7-2.
A team that struggled to score runs before the Marlins got here. Been able to capitalize on fielding mistakes by the Marlins and now just tacking on and adding.
Ichiro makes the catch, and finally the first out of the 7th. Tyler Flowers comes up. So for Don Mattingly, still a puzzle. Why can't the Marlins beat the Braves? Liner, Dietrich has it. Marlins are 5 down with 2 innings left here, but are 0 for the season against Atlanta. This is the 5th meeting. Markakis has had an active series. Knocked in 2 last night, knocked in 2 this afternoon. Jason Grilli in Atlanta's bullpen. the Phillies lost to the Cubs 4-1. Mets and Nationals played tonight. Mets host the Dodgers, Nationals the Cardinals. After winning 3 of 4 against the Rays, Marlins came in here feeling pretty good. With the lost lead last night and that agonizing 8th inning. And here, another 2-0 lead, and it has been demolished by the Braves. The Rays, incidentally, are pounding the Yankees right now, 9-3 in the 8th inning. That's in St. Pete. This is another 30-pitch inning, the third of this ball game. Wei Chen had a 39-pitch inning in the 4th. Jose Urena over 30 pitches in the 6th, 34 pitches. 3-2. That strike 3 call, outside corner. Gordon Beckham, a 3-run homer, and Miami is down 5. For Miami, 8 left. Into the 8th we go. Fish Family loyalty code tonight is MVP. That's the Terry Pendleton shot, the former MVP. 1991. So there you go. Marlins.com/fishfamily to enroll and maybe learn a little more about Terry Pendleton or MVPs in general. Jason Grilli out of the Braves pen, and the veteran right-hander, long ago a Marlin. Many other things since then.
Really did a nice job closing for the Pittsburgh Pirates a few years ago. Comes in here and is now the setup man.
First pitch swinging, Real Muto in right center. It's caught there by Malik Smith. One pitch allowed out. And here's Dietrich. Dietrich singled, scored in the 2nd, hit by a pitch in the 3rd, bounced out in the 6th. Another frustrating day against the Braves. Grilly's 0-2. Dietrich again going to left center. Big turn, holds there.
Oh, he's hit the ball well today. Even the hard shot he had up the middle, the Braves had him played well defensively. Pitches up in the zone. Able to get on top of it, 0-2.
He continues to take advantage of this opportunity. The performance-enhancing drug suspension to D. Gordon and Dietrich, who earned his way to the big leagues with that bat. Didn't have a great spring, but he certainly had a real nice April and May. Here's Gillespie, who was struck out twice and has an RBI triple. And the thing with Dietrich too, that you know, obviously people still look at that batting average first, and that's all well and good, and the average is over 300 with 2 hits today. He's at 309. But you go deeper into the numbers. On base percentage close to 400, slugging percentage 475. His defense has been very solid. So a lot to like about the season of Derek Dietrich. One and two.
Love his versatility. Not afraid to go in lefty on left. He stays in there, but also in Tampa Bay, played left field. Don Mattingly knows he can plug him in anywhere, and he will. Just grab a glove and go.
Count 2-2. A lot of early starts in baseball. Clearing the way for that Baseball Night in America game tonight. The Dodgers and the Mets on Fox. The Pirates, by the way, who arrived Monday night into Miami, are in Texas. Rangers going with a right-hander that I haven't seen on the line score for a while. A guy named Darvish.
You got it.
Dustin McGowan in the pen. Gillespie, right center. Alex Smith has covered a lot of ground. Fires back to first. Dietrich back in time. And so the contrast here for the Braves and the Marlins. You look back at the Braves bullpen last night. Bud Norris, Ian Kroll, Aroldis Vizcaíno. And their bullpen so far here: O'Flaherty, Ogando, Cervenka. That Braves pen's been really good against Miami. The Marlins defense certainly did not help the bullpen last night. Did David Phelps no favors in the 8th. And the defense certainly did not help Jose Urena in the 6th inning.
Those are the 2 guys that the Marlins need in the lineup. Hoping they get better soon.
Ball and a strike. Echeverria 2 more hits in this ball game. You see his May much brighter than April. Running out of days in May. Rolling breaking ball for a strike. June arrives on Wednesday of next week in the middle of that 4-game series with the Pirates. Mets in Miami next weekend. One and two. We saw Eric O'Flaherty come in earlier and had thoughts of that great trio of O'Flaherty, Johnny Venters, and Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell had a rough day in Toronto. The Blue Jays got 2 in the bottom of the 9th to beat Boston 10-9.
The roof must have been open.
Roof open, sun shining, great hitters. Ballpark at that point. Breaking ball misses out.
Oops. Must have been traveling right there on Jason Grilli. You saw him think that 6th pitch. You see it out of the quadrant. Thought it was a strike. I had him losing his pivot foot, headed straight to the dugout. Love to get a little basketball term in the game.
That's nicely done. He slid it right in there. And that one is outside. Miguel Rojas is going to hit.
Really interesting. He went with a slider up 7-2 with 2 outs and a runner on first. I'm thinking just throw the fastball, get a strike, and let Etche do whatever he has to do. It's so hard enough to hit the fastball. Now you get an opportunity to Miguel Rojas to swing the bat. 2 runners on, 1 in scoring position.
So Rojas with 2 outs here in the 8th. Miami's bench, in the absence of Giancarlo Stanton, odds are he's not available. Christian Yelich appeared as a pinch hitter, struck out back in the 6th. Chris Johnson pinch hit, stayed in the game in the 7th. Here's Rojas. It's quickly 0-2. The Marlins backup utility infielder. It's a good grunt there by Grilli. Grilli's dad, a major leaguer with the Tigers and the Blue Jays. Steve Grilli. Check swing, no swing. Alfonso Marquez at first.
For Alfonso Marquez, good job and great call with no more shadows to deal with, but you did not see the wrists commit at all, and you did not see that bat head point towards him. Very good call.
2-2. Runners first and second. Got it. Rojas strikes out. Gurley's grunt brings the third out. 7-2 Atlanta still.
At 7-2 in the bottom of the 8th inning. Be sure to keep it here for our Marlins Live postgame show presented by Checkers. I will be hosting live from the field. We will take a look at the Braves offense and how it has heated up against the Marlins. We'll also give you stats and highlights from today's game. We'll check in as well with the clubhouse and get Don Mattingly's postgame thoughts on this one today. That's all coming up on our Marlins Live postgame show presented by Checkers. Guys.
All right, thank you, Jessica. That ovation, and you saw the young kid with the Superman shirt on dancing. So, a Atlanta youth who was dancing so well that they had him up on the big screen. He was watching that big screen dancing, but the kid that was up on the big screen had the entire place enthralled. A lot of players. You even saw Don Mattingly looking up there watching. 7-2 Atlanta on top. Dustin McGowan's in. Jeff Francoeur out to center. And Ozuna makes the catch. So McGowan enters as the third reliever. Kelly Johnson. The locals tell me that kid that was up there dancing is here on a semi-regular basis. This is the pitcher spot in the Braves order.
Well, he put on a show.
Johnson fouls it back, counts 0-1. The story here today, Braves were able to chew up Wei-Yin Chen, but not score a lot of runs against him and knock him out of the game after 5 innings. Fastball misses away. And then get to Miami's bullpen. Marlins defense, which faltered last night with that pop-up that dropped untouched in left field and the line drive off the glove of Prado. That was in the 8th. Though neither of those balls would be errors. The errors, they came in this ball game. 3 of them. 2 by Marcell Ozuna in center. Balls getting by him. And a ground ball that crawled up the arm of Martin Prado. Liner, Echeverria has it. And McGowan gets 2 quick outs.
Key word being quick. Being able to come in and try to do his work in less than 15 pitches. That way he would be available tomorrow if need be.
Castro now takes down low. Miami down 5 as the top of their order up in the ninth. Ichiro, Martin Prado, Marcell Ozuna, Chris Johnson.
Well, one has to be able to stay positive. The Kansas City Royals were down 7-1 going into the bottom of the ninth today and came back after losing Salvador Perez in the top of the ninth. Came back, scored 7, and beat the Chicago White Sox.
We're talking about that Blue Jays game. They were down 4 in the 8th, tied it. Big Poppy homered in the 9th, and then Toronto scored 2 more against Kimbrel to win it in the bottom of the 9th.
Could be comeback day.
It was 7-1 in the 9th with 1 out, and Kansas City came back and won. Told you that this was shaping up to be a really nice Saturday crowd for a team that has struggled in the standings. Braves 13-34 to start. 33,879 in Atlanta on this Saturday. Ichiro venturing towards the line. Nice play there.
I don't think the people appreciated it as much as he did. Watch this clutch catch with a glove in front of him. Ichiro knows he doesn't have a chance. That young man taking home a souvenir. That's right. Let him know.
A 3-2 count on the Braves shortstop Daniel Castro. In that ballgame, by the way, Xander Bogaerts hit a homer and extends his hit streak to 21. To Hopper, Echeverria gets the out. Miami down 5 and down to the last 3 outs to the 9th. 7-2 Atlanta. brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. By the all-new 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. And by your South Florida Honda dealers. 7-2 Atlanta. Only 6 hits for the Braves, but 3 errors for the Fish have been a key. And the Marlins have left 10 on base. And with that, the attention is turned on Chris Withrow. Came over from the Dodgers, was rehabbing from elbow surgery. And in 11 appearances, ERA in the low 3s. Ichiro, Martin Prado, Marcell Ozuna.
You see the numbers with strikeouts and walks pretty much even. Might be a situation where the Marlins might be taking a strike to see if it gives them an opportunity to get on, start a rally.
Ichiro's walked twice, lined out, and reached on an error. And he goes after a pitch that was in, fouls it back. Withrow out of Midland, Texas. His breaking ball finds the plate. Ichiro behind the count, 1-2. Not a lot of hits at the top of Miami's order. 1 through 4. An 0 for 13. All the hits have been bunched from the 5 spot through the 8 spot. Realmuto a single. Derek Dietrich has 2 hits. Gillespie an RBI triple. 2 hits including an RBI for Echeverria. On a hop, Beckham. And an 0 for 3 day for Ichiro. Here comes Martin Prado.
The Braves have done a great job of neutralizing that top half of the lineup, as you said earlier, doing quality pitches, keeping the hitters off balance.
And 1 to Martin Prado. So the Marlins down to their last 2 outs. One of the things in this stretch with Stanton injured and Yelich injured is that for Don Mattingly, he really can't afford to give guys days off, especially a guy like Martin Prado. Not that Prado would ask for one. He swings and misses there. But I mean, Prado came in to this week as the hardest player to strike out in the National League, and he struck out 3 times in this ballgame.
Yeah, he did not pick up the ball well today.
He had gone 103 games since the last time he punched out 3 times. Now Ozuna. Ozuna, he's 0 for 3, but he walked in the 7th, so it was On-base streak is at 35 games. Ball and a strike. Marlins Live is coming up. From here in Atlanta, Jessica Blaylock will host. Almost 34,000 here. Change up. Ozuna sends it in the gap to left center, and it falls for a hit. And so Marcell Ozuna's not done yet. A 10-game hit streak. That's his 4th hit already in the series.
Tough pitch. A little bit out of the zone, kissing it, but making sure that he's the one that decides. Listen up. Goes out, goes with it.
Chris Johnson. An 0 for 1. He came in for Justin Bour in the 7th. Ozuna's going to take second. The count 2-0 to Johnson. Right field, pretty well hit. Markakis back, and at the wall, Markakis makes the catch. A long fly ball out off the bat of Chris Johnson. And for the Marlins, the mystery remains. How do you beat the Atlanta Braves? For whatever reasons, Miami can't figure it out. The Braves have won a total of 14 games this year. 5 of those have come at Miami's expense.
It's a lot of confidence the Braves have playing the Marlins, and it's shown these past 2 games.
Marlins Live is